Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of So You're Ready to Date. We have officially finished our holiday dating guide or dating through the holidays episodes, and we are moving in to some other content that's really juicy and really great. And you're going to be really glad that you came because one of the big things that causes relationships to not work out comes from ourselves, comes from inside of ourselves. So today we're going to talk about self-sabotage, what that might look like, and ways to stop self-sabotaging so that you can explore the relationships that you are getting into and you can really decide if it is the right relationship and if it is bringing to your life what you want to get out of the relationships that you are engaging in. So again, welcome back. We are so happy that you're here and we'll dive right in.
So literally this episode is the call is coming from inside the house, right? This is the one where it's going to require you to take a step back and to be a little introspective and maybe come from it from a place of, instead of it being like, this is just how I am, maybe we're going to reevaluate and take a little closer look so that, like Angie said, we can start to really create and have the relationships that we desire.
I have to say, you said something right there that really triggered something. Instead of saying, that's just how I am. So there was a time not too long ago when I was having a conversation with Damon and we were talking. And a lot of times he will say, well, it's because I'm Catholic, or it's, well, that's just the way I was raised, and had a lot of those. And he gave me an opportunity to challenge that. And he sat back and he said, well, you know what? You're right. Other Catholic people do that. Well, I don't have to do that just because I was raised that way. And to start questioning that. And so I hope that we can bring some of that to everybody today, because I think that's really important to sit back and challenge that assumption of that's just how I am. Because a lot of times that's beliefs and limitations that we were raised with that we can certainly change. We have lots of options out there and lots of ways that we can challenge that. And just because you've always done something a certain way doesn't mean you always have to do it that way.
Right. And I think it also comes down to that. Well, that's just how my relationships have played out. There's always this idea of, well, that's just how it is. And so today we want to really challenge that notion of, does it have to be that way? Are there maybe other ways that when you notice yourself falling into these habits and patterns that may have broken up relationships in the past, how can we nip this in the bud now so that maybe this turns into like the forever relationship as opposed to being like, oh, just one more in a list that didn't work out because of X, Y, and Z.
I was talking to somebody yesterday and we started talking about thought ladders. And I'd never heard that term before. So I've done this process, but I'd never heard it put in that term before. So if you've never heard of thought ladders, basically what that is, it's starting with the thought that you're having and really dissecting it and going very deep and keep asking down the rung or up the rung the question of why. Why do I think that? Why do I feel that way? Why am I doing that? And eventually getting to the point of, do I actually believe that? And do I want to believe that? Or do I care if it's what other people think of you or other people think of your relationship? Ultimately getting to the point of, do I care what they think of me? And why do I care what they think of me? And so just going through that, why do I feel that way? And then when you get that answer, going to the next one of, okay, so why is that important? Why does that matter to me? And going down and asking why, just like a 2-year-old, until you get to that point of, okay, I believe that, or okay, I don't care, or okay, I can now understand what my internal feeling is so that I can act on it in a way that works for me.
Yes, which always reminds me of this saying that has gone around Instagram for a while. So if maybe you don't have the time to do the thought ladder, which I think is a wonderful idea, and to really dig deep into that, but thoughts are like pancakes. The first pancake is always the worst. So if your thoughts are like pancakes, then that first thought is always just kind of like that automatic, not great one. So if you're in the moment and you have those thoughts, you're like, that's the pancake I don't want to eat. So you're tossing it. So finding these ways that you can, in the moment, interrupt yourself. And then when you have time, being like, okay, now I'm going to go down this ladder of why am I thinking this thought? Because this is not serving me in the way that I need my thoughts to.
Yes. Yes. I like that. And I think that that lends nicely to, and this is probably jumping ahead and kind of going out of order, but really nicely to sometimes once we've been in a relationship for a while, and Lisa, like you said before we even started today, I've seen you wake up in the morning, you spent the night together, you know, the shine is off the penny. Sometimes at that point, self-sabotage shows up because our significant other sees us in a different light than we see ourselves. And it's really hard to accept that people see us more positively than we see ourselves. So we start not believing what they say. And when we start not believing what they say, then there starts to be doubt issues and trust issues because we're not trusting the things that they're telling us, even though they believe them. So recognizing that, you can stop that in its tracks. And just because you don't believe something about yourself, which you absolutely should, because all of our listeners are beautiful and worthy. But just because you don't believe that about yourself doesn't mean that your significant other doesn't believe that. So putting in the frame of I'm going to believe what they tell me can really help stop that self-sabotage.
Well, and not to like sow seeds of doubt here or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. There's no reason to doubt what they've ever told you in the past. I would examine why all of a sudden it's feeling like you need to doubt why they're saying nice things about you now. If you have no reason to believe that they would be lying to you, I think that would be, for me, worthy of exploration. Be like, okay, why is it all of a sudden hitting me when like 2 weeks ago he said the exact same thing and I melted over it? And now I'm just like bristly and being like, what the heck is going on with this dude now? And you can blow it up into this big, huge thing. So I think, sitting back and saying, they've never given me a reason to not believe their word. Why am I not believing it now? And taking that as a sign to be like, what has changed maybe in my life that has thrown off my self-esteem, that has kind of maybe dinged my confidence a little bit. Maybe it was a work thing, a friend thing, a family thing, but trying to use that as an opportunity to get curious. This is all about curiosity and not about shame or judgment or making it into you're like a terrible person now. No, this is your opportunity to be like, okay, something is off here. What do I need to explore so that I can get back to this place where I feel comfortable and safe and confident in not only myself, but this relationship?
Right. And I think that that lends itself really well to the getting curious. Kind of goes now, if we go back to a little bit earlier in the relationship, and let's say that things are really going well, one of the other ways that this shows up is always waiting for the other shoe to drop. So at that point, we're looking for the bad stuff in the relationship. We're looking for reasons that it's not going to work instead of reasons that it does. And as the law of attraction will teach you, or other, even physics will teach you, that like attracts like. So when you start looking for what's missing, what's not right, what's not good, you're going to see more of that, and you're going to find more reasons that your relationship won't work than it will. So right here, waiting for the other shoe to drop is another big way that we cause self-sabotage to our relationships.
I feel like I have a PhD in this one because that's been pretty much my modus operandi. Be like, no, it's not that I'm just waiting for the other shooter. I'm just being real about this. I'm just trying to be, not have these rose-colored glass. I'm like, no, it's very much not about letting myself enjoy where we are in the moment without trying to figure out 15 steps down the road or be the, mind reader and figure out what they're trying to think about. It's trying to protect myself. And I realize that now. I realized that it was always been about me trying to protect myself from getting hurt, where it's like, if I can reject you before you reject me, then it's going to sting in a way that makes more sense to me. Yeah, it might hurt. I might be sad that it's over, but it was on my terms. And I got to be the dumper and not the dumpy. And so then it goes into this other story about, who I am and what I do and all. Like, there are other stories that are always related to that stuff, but I think it's always this way to proactively keep ourselves from being hurt, but it also kind of proactively keeps us from really getting to enjoy the relationship and getting to enjoy getting to know somebody new. And yeah, you may end up disappointed or it not go the way you want to. But looking back, I can see there were plenty of times I should have let myself be more excited and more in the moment. But because I was so focused on, waiting for the next bad news, that I didn't actually get to enjoy some of the moments. And eventually, yeah, there was bad news, but there were good things that I could have enjoyed way more because I was in the moment and not worried about what was going to happen next.
Oh, I love that, because you are so right. And there are red flags. There are definitely red flags. And when you see red flags, it's not about stopping the self-sabotage. It's about leaving that situation. But we're talking about when you're not seeing that, but we're talking about somebody who drops their shirt by the hamper instead of in the hamper, right? We're talking about somebody who might step out of the shower without drying their feet first. That's the kind of stuff where you can look at it and say, oh, I could never live with this. Oh, I can't do that. Somebody who gets toothpaste on the mirror, those types of things. And what we're saying here is those are forms of waiting for what's wrong with the relationship, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Or if your relationship is going really well and not trusting that they actually want to be with you because you're you, and thinking that they're going to come in and say, nope, this isn't working, and that they're not at the same place you are feeling wise. Those are the types of things that we're talking about are really focusing on when we're talking about waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right. Thank you for clarifying that. It was never about like the big red flags, because we've talked about red flags in the past, and those are definitely not to be ignored. But yeah, it's like, oh, the way he chews gum is weird, or the way that she puts the dishes in the dishwasher is wrong. So it's about trying to be almost nitpicky to the point where you can justify stopping the relationship or avoiding being vulnerable or avoiding taking those next steps because you're like, yeah, they're not perfect. I don't know if I could deal. Yeah, we're all not perfect. We should hopefully all realize that by now. But I think, again, it's about trying to find those reasons that it wouldn't be perfect because it can't be perfect.
So instead, focus on the fact that they do put the dishes in the dishwasher. They have good hygiene and they brush their teeth every day. Let's talk about the fact that, okay, I don't have a good scenario. Well, at least they shower. They're clean. So, if your bathroom floor or your bathroom rug is a little bit wet, at least they're showering. So focus on the things that are right about that relationship. Do they make you feel good? Do they say nice things to you? Do they help with the dishes? Do they help around the house if you're at that point? I mean, a lot of times at the beginning, you won't be around that. You won't be at that point. But at some point, where do they really fit into your life? Do they mesh well with your life? And instead of looking for reasons that it won't work, look for all the reasons that it will work. Look for all the things that are right. And that will help you take down that defense mechanism of just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
That's a great suggestion to kind of go back and look at what's going right, or go back to like your checklist. What were you looking for in a partner, and trying to find the ways that maybe they're hitting the mark on that. And I think a big part is like, how do you feel when you're with them? I think that is usually a bigger thing for me. I'm like, yes, I can, and some of those things annoy me, but ultimately I feel good with them. I feel safe with them. So finding the positive in that and holding more tightly to that. So maybe writing a list so that when they have those moments that they annoy you, like, here's my list. This is why things are good.
Here's all the reasons I like you.
Right.
And also, so we're talking about writing and starting to write some of those things out. Lisa, you were talking about how you write out your worst case scenarios.
Yes. I think it's about like bringing it to light. So letting it rattle around in my brain makes it into this like compound situation where you start with one thing and then you just keep adding and adding and adding. And so it was something that a counselor had years ago challenged me to do, is to write out all of the like worst case scenarios that I was thinking of, and then to go back and like really think about how likely those situations were. And if there were ones that felt really likely to me, what was my ability to survive said worst case scenario? So I think a lot of times when we talk about fear and being scared of things, we want to ignore it and we want to kind of like lock it in a box, put it in the back room, in the back of our brain, and be like, I'm not going to deal with this now. But I think we need to bring some of that stuff to light. We need to put it out there so that the sun can kill it, almost, for lack of a better word there. It just, because then we don't give it as much power. Then it's not this thing that's hanging over us being like, ooh, just wait, I'm coming for you. No, it's like, yeah, this thing could happen. And yes, it might hurt, but would it be the end of my world? No, it wouldn't. And I think just being able to verbalize the things that I was worried about gave them less power in my brain and kind of gave me the ability, again, to be more present where I wanted to and needed to.
One of the tools that I've used with clients in the past is in doing the worst case scenario and going that, okay, if the worst case scenario happens, then what? And if that happens, then what? And walking through until you get to some awful tragedy that is 0.0000001% likely to happen, right? And then also going to the other extreme. So not just focusing on the negative, but what about the best case scenario? What's the best case scenario? And if that happens, then what? And walking that all the way through till, again, you ride off into the sunset on a unicorn. 0.0001% chance of that happening, especially since unicorns at this point in time are mythical. So just going through the best case and the worst case, and then kind of coming back and saying, okay, so now we know what the best case is. We know what the worst case is. What's likely to happen? And can you live with that? And if you can live with that, that really does put your fears to rest, because then you know no matter what happens, you know where you're going to end up on the worst case. And no matter what happens, you know where you're going to end up on the best case. And it can kind of put your anxiety at ease and give you the freedom to just be present where you're at.
Yes. Thank you for like the two sides of the same coin, right? You have to have the good and the bad. And by, bringing extra attention, because it's easy to focus on the bad stuff. I think we're all kind of like pre-programmed to find everything that's going to go wrong, but it's a little bit more challenging sometimes to find everything that goes right. And if we want to work that muscle, we have to practice it. So it is about giving equal time to all of the good things that could happen. So hopefully that's where our focus goes next time.
Right. And I think that goes right along with the fact that it's okay to acknowledge your fears. You were talking about how we like to lock our fears in a box, and writing out the worst case scenario sometimes gives that light. But really, this is kind of a sliver off of that. It's one and the same, but it's also different. Really acknowledging your fears. Because if you're writing out the worst case scenario, that's not the same as saying, I'm really afraid of commitment, or I am really afraid of letting somebody see who I am. I'm really afraid of taking the mask off. And it is okay that we have those fears. Nobody is saying that you're not allowed to have those fears. And nobody is saying that they don't walk alongside you and come with you. But it's okay. We have evolved over time. Many, many thousands of years, we have evolved, and it is okay to talk to yourself or to look at yourself and say, yep, I acknowledge you. I know that you're there. I know that you're trying to keep me safe. Thank you for that. But I'm going to be making the decision and not letting that itty bitty piece of your brain where your fear is stored make that decision for you.
I've had several coaches tell me to name that voice and that fear, and to give it a name that you do not like, so that you can cuss it out and say, hey, blank, shut up, sit down. I don't need to hear from you right now. So, finding a way to kind of make it humorous and make it a way that like it's serious, but not too serious, that, it can kind of bring a little bit of levity in this moment where you're like, okay, it's just that stupid voice in the back of my head. I'm going to tell it to shut up and sit down. And hopefully help you go back about your day and your life.
Yes, absolutely. So I think those are some really great tidbits as far as getting out of our own way and avoiding self-sabotage, or maybe not even avoiding self-sabotage, but even stopping it before it starts, because we all do it, right? We all get in our own way. And it's like we have a thermostat, or I think, my coach, my program describes it as this thermostat setting. And our thermostat might be set at 70 degrees, and it will let it go up to 72 or down to 68, but we stay right in this range. And our subconscious mind, when it comes to our relationships, has a set point, and we know where we're at with our relationships, and what we want is well above where that set point is. But our self-sabotage will keep us in this set point here in that 68 to 72 degree range. And what we want to do is we want to elevate, and we want to find a relationship that's at 80 degrees, just for example. So it's understanding and acknowledging that self-sabotage, and know that it's going to show up for us. It may show up in a multitude of different ways, but understanding that it's going to show up, and having the tools and the ability to recognize that and stop it in its tracks, or to change that direction and to turn it into a tool or a resource, rather than something that is going to take away and detract from our relationships.
Yeah. So now that we've just made you aware, you are not going to not see it. So you are welcome. Because it's all about awareness. It's one of those things that, you just buy a white car and now all you see is white cars. So now that you have been made aware that how self-sabotage can start to show up in your relationships, it's going to be probably very painfully obvious. And you can send us an email at soyou'readytodate@gmail.com and send your thanks for bringing this to light, making sure that you're aware, giving you some tools to handle this with. If you've got other ideas, worries, concerns with regards to self-sabotage when it comes to dating, relationships, anything like that, please let us know. Give us, your best questions with regards to that, or anything you want to know with regards to dating, relationships, the whole shebang here, so that we make sure that we get those questions answered if you've got them.
And come back and join us next week as we dive into a whole new topic to help you unwrap your dating life and find the love you've been looking for.
See you next time.